All rise! Silence in court. This is the court of Judge Bookman, which is me. And today we're putting on trial a very famous movie indeed. Yes, of course, this is the case of the viewing audience versus The Little Mermaid. And as we've got the same people, and I searched high and low throughout the internet to find the best people possible, but I couldn't find anyone, so I had to get these two idiots in. The defense.
Objection, Marona.
No, later. The counsel for the defense is the lovely Lady in the Hat. Say hello, Lady in the Hat. Lady in the Hat.
Well, I guess the prosecution wins.
Say hello, Lady in the Hat.
Hello, can you not hear me?
We can barely
hear you.
We can
now. I can hear you.
I can just about
I am here, and I am here to defend this movie, and this is a hill I'm going to die on.
Good.
I'm very pleased to make that happen.
And as you've just heard from that several rude interruptions, the question is the Muddled Medic, who apparently
Muddles.
Muddles, who earlier today had trouble defeating some balloons, so I don't know how she's going to manage this case. Anyway.
Balloons are evil and bad for the environment.
Anyway, The Little Mermaid, beautiful Disney film, started the Disney Renaissance. And we start with the plot. So, Muddled Medic, begin your prosecution on the case of The Little Mermaid's plot.
I would like to begin my case for the prosecution by simply summarising the plot for you. So what happens is that the daughter of a king has a birthday party thrown for her by her dad, the king. It's a really special occasion. She doesn't show up because instead she's off desecrating a grave. Later she goes and sees her dad. They have a row. She expresses the fact that she's sick of her boring life where she goes out and desecrates graves and steals the property of the people who died in them all the time. And she really wants to be she wants to move away, live a more independent life, free from her family. She's 15. She's
Muddle, save
this
15.
Stuff
for the character segment.
No. I'm just laying out the plot, Your Honour. This is relevant, I assure you. So after she just sings about it, because of course she has to, she happens upon a fairly handsome guy. This is, as far as we know, the first eligible guy she has ever been exposed to. She immediately falls in love, runs away from home after doing a dodgy deal with a person that she knows full well to be evil, ends up stuck in his palace but unable to communicate with him, tries to kiss him despite having never shared a conversation, then fails to pay her debt to the person who set her up in that new life, and her boyfriend / kidnapper / whatever deals with it for her and makes it all okay by killing that person. And then, because it's a fairy tale, she gets to go off and live with her magic prince and never sees her father or any of her friends ever again. That is Muddles, the plot, ladies and gentlemen.
You know, Muddles, it sounds to me like you really don't like this movie.
My personal feelings have nothing to do with this prosecution case, Your Honour.
Then why were
nothing at all.
Then why were you complaining to me yesterday about me making you watch this movie again, and that you hated me and wanted to kill me?
I query the relevance of that point, Your Honour, and I don't think I said that I wanted to kill you. I said that I wanted to chain you down and make you watch this film on repeat 1,000 times, and I thought that would be suitable punishment.
It's pretty much the same thing. Anyway, moving on. What is
that would be ultimately fatal. I agree, because the sheer stupidity of this film would certainly lead to your death. Leading on to my what, sorry?
Your complaints against the plot. Your charges. What do you charge?
My complaints against the plot. I think that this plot suggests that it's totally fine for a 15-year-old to run off with an older man that she's never met before, abandoning her family, friends, and father. I also think there are gaping holes in the plot. For example, the fact that the person that she runs off with is guilty of genocide against creatures that we know are sentient and that it's clearly established is sentient throughout the rest of the film.
They're fish, just so you're aware.
The fish, yes, the fish and the lobsters and the crabs. And to drill home the fact that this is in fact a genocide, we see a sentient crab, namely Sebastian, trapped inside a kitchen where a chef repeatedly tries to kill him. And this is meant to be funny.
It is, though. It is a little bit.
It's meant to be funny that this sentient creature with human intelligence is going to be boiled alive, or perhaps fried. I wasn't quite clear on the chef's cooking technique here. Based on the fact that he prepared Sebastian with flour and seasoning before throwing him into the pot, you would expect it to be full of oil, as if he was going to be battered and fried. But in fact, I think it was boiling water. So really, it's there's another inconsistency with the plot, is that the cooking is just wrong.
Yes.
Well, obviously, I can't argue against that.
Well, you're going to have to later, but Muddles hasn't finished yet, Lady in the Hat.
I was being sarcastic.
Good.
Were you?
Yes.
Lady,
What, you think that the cooking is good?
I
guys,
just think it's beside the point.
Oh,
you
fine.
will be silent. Lady in the Hat, save your defence until Muddles has finished, unless you have an objection, at which point you have to say objection, because this is a court. Why do I have to tell you people this? We went over this last time.
But that was months ago, Judge.
Shut up and carry on.
With alcohol since then.
You used alcohol?
Oh yeah.
Can we compare suitable remedies after this is finished?
Sure.
Because I couldn't quite erase the memory fully.
Become an internet critic, they said. It'll be fun, you said. You'll meet interesting people, they said. Anyway, carry on, Muddles.
Right, so the plot generally, I would say, is not only full of really, really gaping, really, really important holes, but it also is the story of a 15-year-old running away from home, which is somehow glamorized into a glorious love story where she meets the man of her dreams and they all live happily ever after. Whereas in reality, I would say this story is much more like something that would happen in a horror film or in a gritty TV drama, where the police try and find this lost girl who's run away from home. It seems totally out of place in the Disney pantheon. It is not only suggesting that it is fine to run away with the first guy that you fall in love with. Someone, looking at her, she is a 15-year-old. Everyone has crushes when they're 15. But what she does is have a crush when she's 15, run off with that crush, leave behind everybody that she knows and loves, cut off contact with them completely, and in doing so, get herself in debt. Like, if I was creating a modern-day version of this, she would be a girl who runs away from home, gets caught up with a drugs gang, and ends up hideously in debt to them. That is how this is the modern day comparison of the plot. Okay. It's not a sweet story. It's not a fulfilling story. And there's loads and loads and loads of logical inconsistencies with it.
Okay. Leaving aside the running away from home, what else do you have a problem with the plot?
Well, I have a problem with the whole princess ends up randomly encountering super evil witch, who she knows is a super evil witch, despite the fact that she knows she's a super evil witch, and sees an example of what happens to those who fail to complete their side of the bargain. She willingly gets involved in a terrible bargain, and it is a terrible bargain. There's she doesn't even read the small print here, but when I watched it back a couple of days ago, I was stunned to see that actually, from the way that Ursula presents it, it sounds like no matter what happened, Ariel was never going to get her voice back. So what she did is, in exchange for her voice, one of her greatest gifts She wanted a pair of legs so that she could chase after a guy that she'd never even spoken to and had no idea if he was actually a decent person or not.
Is that it?
And she did that knowing that if she did not succeed in kissing the boy within 3 days, then she would end up stuck as a little tormented spirit in Ursula's cellar. Because, in case you forgot, Ursula literally keeps dark grey tormented souls trapped inside her dwelling. And Ariel saw these, knew that if she failed to pay the price, then she would become one of them, and took the deal anyway because she is a teenage girl who is acting out of her mind. Sorry?
This is getting a little bit into character, isn't
No.
it?
I would say that this is still very much part of the plot because the whole plot relies on this seemingly vaguely intelligent and scientifically minded girl who I question the scientific benefit of anything that she does, but
she's a mermaid.
It's a girl who should know better. And the whole plot revolves around the fact that somebody who knows that somebody is evil goes to that person of her free will, out of choice, and knowing at any point that she could leave, still chose to stay and sign literally everything away. And she was under no obligation to do so at all. It was her free choice, and the whole plot revolves around this single moment. And unless her boyfriend was slightly less good at accidentally impaling somebody with a ship.
Accidentally? He deliberately turned into her.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but like sailing on a sea, it's kind of like, it's not a classic way of killing somebody. It's not a great technique of battle here. And
sorry, are you saying sailing on the sea is not a great technique of battle? Because I can think of quite a few examples.
No. I'm saying that ramming somebody with a boat does not seem like a certain way of killing somebody.
Again, I can think of many examples. The Greeks, the Romans, they had rams on their boats.
I know that the Greeks and the Romans had rams on their boat. Prince Eric did not have a ram on his boat. His boat was not designed for ramming.
Your Honour, I think this is getting beside the point. Let's try and
You're quite right, Lady in the Hat. Yes.
Stay on course.
Muddles, could you possibly... I'm just going to ignore that dreadful pun. Muddles, could you summarise your case against the plot in one sentence?
Fine, summarise my case against the plot. So it is stupid. It makes no sense if you think about it for more than 10 seconds, and it glamorises this really, really disturbing idea that a 15-year-old running away from home to go after the boy that she caught a glimpse of once is totally fine and acceptable. That is my problem with the plot.
Okay. Lady in the Hat, your defence for the plot, please.
Your Honour, I'd just like to start by asking whether the prosecution and I actually watched the same movie, because she has got several details wrong. At the beginning, it's not Ariel's birthday, it's actually her debut as a singer. And
Fine.
Also, in her defence, she doesn't know that the sunken ship is a grave, or that grave desecration is necessarily wrong. Ditto with Prince Eric eating fish. Yes, it's horrifying when you think about it, but these characters are unaware and are not morally culpable for their actions.
Might I just raise a point there?
Objection before you do, because we're trying
to... Fine, objection. Can I raise a point, please? So, Eric may not know that the fish he's eating are sentient, but when Ariel sits down for dinner with him and sees that fish are on the menu, she is not repulsed. She doesn't immediately start gesticulating and saying, "Oh my gosh, please stop killing and eating my fishy friends." And she does not in any way try and prevent him from going back and killing more fish.
Good point.
So even if Prince Eric did not know, Eric, if I went to a dinner and I was served dead human, I would look a little bit, even if I was completely mute and incapable of saying anything, I would look kind of sickened. And I might in fact throw up. And Ariel did none of those things.
Well, you be quiet. Okay,
no.
If I could mute you, I would. Lady in the Hat, please continue.
You have no authority here, Judge Bookman.
Actually, he does. He's a judge. So
oh, fair enough. Yeah, you're quite right.
Anyway, I think that the world building and the storytelling in the plot are actually really well done. I think every point in the story naturally leads on for another, and the songs are very good at furthering the story along and showing us what the characters feel. In defense of the whole, well, she's a naive teenager who makes reckless decisions, I kind of feel that's the point with Ariel. What she makes is a reckless decision. But you have to remember that her father just destroyed all these things that meant a lot to her and basically denied her any chance of freedom outside of the confines that society has set for her. Her wanting to be on land is not just about meeting some man, it's actually about her wanting to be free. And for me, that's actually a very feminist idea, even if the way in which she goes about it is problematic. You also have to remember that not all female characters necessarily have to be feminist icons. They're allowed to be flawed, and that's what Ariel is. What she wants is right, but how she goes about it is wrong because she's a flawed teenager who hasn't really got that prefrontal cortex yet, and also she's been very much hurt by the one who was meant to protect her and love her. So it's kind of understandable that she wouldn't be in her right head when she goes to Ursula, the sea witch. And the thing is, Ursula takes advantage of that. She takes advantage of the fact that Ariel is naive and having a first crush, and that's how she's able to rope her into a deal that really isn't fair. And yeah, you know, it's like, as people have joked, it's basically she's like a student loan company. It is. Yeah. That's what makes her a great villain. Her worldliness and her cunning and manipulation are the perfect foil for Ariel's innocence and naivety.
Objection. If I might make a point, my problem is not that Ariel is presented as insecure, naive teenager. It's the fact that that is glamorized and that she then everything turns out okay. I think that it is not an accurate representation. Sorry?
You have to remember it nearly didn't, though. She does face the consequences of her actions.
Until her boy saves her. Until the men in her life rally around her to make her all safe and happy.
Well, that was one of those things that was very much coincidental. Eric could have easily missed. And also, you have to remember this story isn't just about her and the prince. It's also about her relationship with her father. And it's about them both realising that they've been wrong. And in the sense that Ariel realises that she can't just leave her family behind her. And Triton finds out that no, you can't just hold on to your children forever, and that sometimes trying to shelter them from the world just makes them rebel against you. And I thought that was one of the story arcs that was really well done.
Mm-hmm. Anything else, ladies?
I would disagree, but anyway.
I'm sure you would. That's kind of what you're here for.
I think I get your point that maybe some little girls might take away from it and might see it as being glamorizing something which we know in real life is not okay. But at the same time, you had an imagination as a little girl, and you would have known the difference between fantasy and reality. That's what this is. We all know that in real life, getting married at 16 is not a good idea. But when you're 5 years old, being 16 feels like you're a massive grown-up. And so, really, it's playing into... Yeah, exactly. It's playing into that fantasy of growing up and living happily ever after. I think that's absolutely fine for young girls. It shouldn't be the only message they imbibe, but in and of itself, it's not harmful.
Thank you, Lady in the Hat. Do you have any further points, or shall we move on?
No, you can move on.
Okay. Our next segment is, of course, character. So, Muddled Medic. You've already talked about this at some length during the plot segment.
I didn't!
Please, carry on. Present your case against the characters, please.
So let's talk about Ariel first of all. So Ariel is... I haven't really. You're quite correct. It wasn't her birthday party. It was her coming out, her singing debut thing. Oh my gosh, that song was just awful. Sorry.
Leave that for the style.
Yeah, it's okay. Right from the beginning, she misses her singing debut because she's off exploring a sunken ship with And she isn't going alone, remember. She's dragging her friend Flounder, who is really quite nervous, along with her, and who would really rather not go at all. I think that this demonstrates a few key points of her character. Firstly, you might call it naive. I would say it's more careless. As in, she doesn't care about the impact that she has on other people. This is a trait which is demonstrated multiple times through this film. She doesn't care about the danger that she puts Flounder in, or the fact that she drags this fish, who, I mean, his age is never given, but it's kind of implied that he's like a younger brother. She goes to the Sea Witch despite knowing that this will upset her father and that she is potentially putting her father and all of her sisters in danger. And then finally, she abandons her father and her sisters and her friends in pursuit of one guy who she's never even met. Now, some people would say, oh, she's so charming and she's so naive, and it's just, it's telling the story of a teenager growing up. I would say she was never a nice person. She was never a nice person, because nice people do not treat their friends and their family like this. Nice people don't carelessly forget these things because they're off indulging a private passion. They don't carelessly let their parents and their siblings worry about them and believe that they might be dead. Ariel just doesn't care about these people in her life.
Very nice models. For the sake of variety,
she doesn't think about them.
For the sake of variety, could we hear about a character other than Ariel now, please?
Okay, so let's talk about Triton, her father. Now, I think what Disney is trying to present here is a father who loves his daughter very much and wants to keep her safe to the point where he suffocates her. I would say that Triton is trying to keep his daughter safe because there are literally ships going over them every day, throwing down nets and capturing, killing, and eating his subjects. I think that his fear for her is totally 100% legitimate. It is appropriate. And Ariel blindly fails to see this truth. And he will do whatever he needs to do to
You're doing
keep
the
her
defense's
safe.
job here, surely.
Why?
You just talked about Triton in a positive manner. Leave that. Can you?
No, because Disney doesn't actually do that. I said that's what Disney was trying to do.
My apologies.
But it doesn't succeed. Because what it actually does is make Triton angry. Ariel doesn't show up for her singing recital. Triton is angry. Ariel finds a new treasure. Triton destroys it because and what we're meant to believe is that he's misguidedly trying to tell her that the surface is not safe and she must not go there under any circumstances. But this just shows it's meant to be a moment that in the path to him becoming a better father for Ariel, but it just doesn't work because a good father would see her passion and would try and redirect it. He wouldn't try and destroy everything important to her, because in doing so, what he actually does is make her feel unsafe and unloved. And this is a guy who's raised lots of daughters. He should, and they all seem totally fine. Triton should be a good father all the way through, but a good father who struggles to understand his youngest child. But what they actually do is make Triton a bad father, and then suddenly try to make him cycle round into being a good father. And that isn't how it works. If Triton
Your
Honor. Yes, Lady in Head.
I think it's okay to have characters who are bad people, because otherwise you wouldn't have a conflict in the story. If Triton were a good father in this story, we wouldn't have this story. If Ariel was punctual and considerate, we wouldn't have a story.
But my problem is that by the end, he is meant to be a good father because he's learned that he can let Ariel go. And it comes across as unbelievable to me that somebody who was so terrified about his daughter's safety, after going through a process where he's lost her and he thinks that she might be dead, is suddenly prepared to just let her go again. There's no transformative moment for Triton. where he sees that happen. There's no time given to it, except maybe a moment where he sees Ariel and Eric together and goes, oh, maybe they are truly in love. Which, to be honest, putting myself into the position of a father with a 15-year-old daughter, if she went all doughy-eyed at a total stranger that she'd never actually had a conversation with and said, I'm going to run away from home and leave you and go into this place where all the people that kill all of our citizens live. If I was a good father, I would not say, yeah, sure, have some legs. I would say, maybe you could carry on dating, but also, like, come home now, please. Please come home.
You don't
and,
think
like, we'll talk about
the moment might have been when he saw his daughter standing up to the sea witch, who currently had power over all the seas, and then realised, hey,
yeah, but why is that transformative in the way that he sees his daughter? Sees his daughter making another reckless decision after dooming him to eternal damnation or similar torment at the hands of Ursula.
Proving that she can stand up for herself. Anyway, I'm getting off the point.
Does she though? How does she, like, she makes a gesture.
Okay.
She doesn't actually achieve anything or prove that she is capable or strong enough to stand up by herself.
Done, Ariel.
Ariel is never given the opportunity.
Please move on to other characters, please. We have
Eric is just sickening. Like, he's just one of these two sweet characters that we actually know absolutely nothing about. We don't actually know what he, like, the only things that we know he likes are kissing girls, falling in love in the space of 3 days with a stranger that you've never actually spoken to, and playing the pipe and dancing, and also apparently sailing, though we never, like, we get to see a little bit of him sailing earlier on, so that kind of works, but there's no real character development for him. He's literally just the guy who kind of falls in love with Ariel because she sounds pretty and is prepared to search the whole kingdom for her because she has a nice singing voice. Mm-hmm. By the way, Eric, if you're listening, hit me up.
Oh, for goodness sake. This is not a dating agency, Muddled Medic.
What?
Also, Prince Eric, I'm sorry to tell you this, Prince Eric doesn't actually exist. He's a fictional character.
So you say. But who's Judge Bookman if not a fictional character?
A persona that I'm putting on. Anyway, this is not the point.
Which makes him a fictional character, but also a real person.
Please move on.
Okay. But he is just... and he's one of these really, really bland Disney princes. There's, like, I can't even think of anything to say about him. He's just bland. Like, he kind of, like... I mean, maybe creepy. Maybe he's creepy. Maybe that's it. Maybe he falls in love with a girl that he's never really spoken to because she's pretty. Like, it's literally like, she's pretty, so why don't we kiss? And hey, do you want to marry me?
So he's a teenage
and then he gets kind of semi-possessed by Ursula, and is kind of like, he would actually be an interesting character and a lot more of a douchebag if he actually just, like, completely flipped and was like, oh my gosh, I was gonna marry this girl who doesn't have a voice, but you sound like that person that pulled me out of the sea once, so you want to get hitched. That would have made for a much more interesting character. And also, then you could have had Ariel, like, completely rejecting him afterwards and deciding to return to the sea and be happy with her family, which would have been a much better character development, I think.
I seem to remember that's kind of more or less what happens in the original fairy tale, do I have to...
Yes. Although I think she dies at the end in that one.
Yeah, something to do with dancing on bare feet or something. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, anyway.
Moving on to other characters, please, and try and be
Who else? Sebastian doesn't really have a character apart from he wants to do what Triton tells him to, but sometimes he randomly doesn't do what Triton tells him to because there must be a reason for that, but it's never really explained. Also, he's meant to be, like, the court composer, and yet he's given this really weird job of following Ariel about, which is, like, weird. Like, Triton has loads of fish in his court. Why does he pick him?
Because Sebastian has a cool Jamaican accent. Moving on.
Yeah, and that's not problematic at all.
Yeah.
Flounder, again, doesn't really have a character. He's just the little younger brother who kind of drops out of the film partway through because it's then on land. Doesn't do anything interesting in the meantime. There's the seagull who...
Scuttle.
Has no interesting character. He just is a bit of a show-off and I mean, he's fake news personified. That's what I thought when I saw him. I was like, he is fake news. He's like those wellness websites which are like, you know, if you eat soil at night on the full moon, then you will get better. That is Scuttle.
And I'm pretty sure he also won the 2020 election, but that's getting into something else entirely.
Wait, the 2020 election?
Yes, he campaigned for a very long time. Anyway, you're forgetting someone very important, aren't you?
Ursula.
There we go.
I think you want me to say that actually. I think you want me to think that Ursula is actually okay, don't you, Judge Bookman?
It would be nice. It would be
Yeah,
a bit.
no.
It would detract from the monotony slightly. Yes.
Look, I know that there are other materials that dig more into Ursula's background, but the film doesn't at all, ever, even a little bit. So all we know is evil witch who has powers. We don't know why, where, or how. We don't know why Triton allows her.
Yes.
We don't always need to know where a witch's powers come from.
We
In
don't
most fairy
always-
tales, they're a plot device, and really, if it's not essential to the film, we don't need to know.
You're quite right. We don't necessarily need to know in this film. That's fine. But we do kind of need to know why Triton lets her live within the boundaries of his kingdom. Because she's like really, really close to Triton's palace. Right?
I should point out at this
She's
point,
banished.
in the original script of the movie, she was supposed to be his half sister. So that would explain why he...
Yes.
Admittedly, that
Yes.
Yeah.
But like, so her deal is that she likes to have tormented souls under her power. We don't know why.
Well,
It's
she
I
clearly...
don't know. She's just evil. She's just one-dimensionally evil. She wants to maybe rule, or maybe just like enslave the entire kingdom,
Or both.
or both, you know. But it's never really made clear what she actually does want. Does she want to turn everyone into one of those little grey globfish things, to sit inside her cave and suffer forever, or does she want to like actually rule? Or does she want to wage war on the people on the surface? Why
She
does
wants
she
to rule
have...
the entire ocean, and that's why she wants Triton's trident.
Exactly.
Yeah, sure.
It's made
but,
very...
Yes, but why?
Why not?
People say, she wants to rule, but people never ever specify what they actually want when they say that they want to rule something. Like, if she wanted to be queen, like, she has all of this magic power, why can't she find a less complicated way of actually enslaving everybody?
Gosh,
why
I wonder, could
does
it
she have to
possibly be
do
because
this?
Triton has this ultimate trident that controls the seas and will make a head-on fight pretty much impossible? Gosh!
Like, ambition and hubris are a thing. Some people do just want power for power's sake. You know, you see that in
then
real
why?
life all the time.
Then why does she use her power to just turn people into grey? I think it's inconsistent. You can say, she wants power, but in that case, so she goes out, makes all these deals with people, they renege, and then she turns them into little grey globfish to sit in her cave. Why doesn't she then, like, use the fact that they failed, you know, instead of writing into her contract, if you fail me, you become little grey globfish for all eternity, she says, you become my slave, in my power, and you have to do whatever I tell you. Because that would be consistent from somebody who is looking for power. What she actually does is turn them into useless cave ornaments.
That is actually a good point. Fair enough. Anyway, do you have anything more to say,
it's a bit consistent.
Anything more to say? Because otherwise we do want to get this video done at some point today.
Sure, yeah. I would just say that also character development-wise, the characters that people would say have character development are Triton and Ariel, right? Ariel's character development is that she ends up getting exactly what she wants with no consequences. So therefore, does not apply to me. And Triton's character development is so far-fetched and so unexpected that it makes no sense to me. I dislike the idea that somebody who is kind of portrayed as borderline abusive, destroying all of his daughter's possessions, suddenly becomes this loving dad who's ready to let her go off and live her life on her own. It's just unrealistic. Potentially creates an unrealistic image of like domestic domestic violence and controlling behaviour and that kind of stuff. Anyway.
Yes, and of course we want the
So we
movie
all
of
know
talking
this
fish
movie
and
is about
mermaids to
realism.
be realistic, don't we? We just made the same point at the same time, but never mind. Anyway, counsel
can
for the
cut that
defence,
out.
Lady in the Hat. Please give your defence for the characters, and try and be brief if you can. Muddles tends to rant, especially about this movie.
Well,
I'm sorry, I was going to make a really concise point focusing on one or two characters, and you're the one that made me go into all of them.
I don't.
Just saying,
Muddles,
Judge.
I'm going to say this in the nicest way, but you're not called Muddles for nothing.
This is
Oh,
true.
Anyway,
Thank you. Thank you.
In
Case in
defense
point.
of Ariel, I like her character. She's curious, she's completely fearless, a bit foolhardy, but she is convincing as your typical teenager. I feel for her desire to rebel against the strict rules her father has placed around her. Her whole song, Part of Your World, reflects how her desire wants to be on land, is her desire to be free of that. And I think I've said quite a lot about Ariel in defense of the fact that she's a naive teenager and that female characters are allowed to be flawed because flaws are what create conflict. And while, yes, I'd have a problem if everyone held up Ariel as just being this archetype that everyone should follow, sure, but she's just one character in a whole pantheon of different Disney princesses. And just taken as her being part of a whole, I don't really see her as a big problem. Again, I'm really also going to disagree with the medic on Triton. I really liked his character arc. He's both intimidating as the overly protective father figure, but you do realise it does come from a place of love and only wanting to protect her. He just goes the wrong way about it. Again, in a way, he is like Ariel. What he wants isn't bad. It's just the way he goes about it that's bad. We all know that shielding your children from reality and not teaching them about the dangers of the world is actually very counterproductive.
Are you listening, Elsa and Anna's parents? Sorry, carry on.
Exactly. You're basically teaching your child to hide things from you and to lie to you. And you can also see that when he destroys her stuff, it really pains him. When he looks back on her sobbing, and there is a part of him that actually really regretted doing that because he feels like he's kind of broken his daughter. And he realizes that what he did was wrong when she goes missing and no one can find her. You can tell he's absolutely distraught. And that's the moment when he begins to realize his approach has been wrong. I think when it comes to the character of Eric, I would agree he has some personality, more than most Disney princes. What I like is that it's implied that he is also orphaned and he basically has Grimsby as his adoptive father. And you get this sense of Eric that he's kind of lost and can't find his way in life. And so him being with a mermaid kind of shows that, yeah, he, in his own way, he does go against the grain. He's not just another royal heir who just needs to find another princess to marry in a politically arranged marriage. You get the sense that he wants to meet the right person and he wants to marry for love. So he's not the best prince out there, I get that, but he's a foretaste of better characters to come. Now, Ursula, I think she's a fabulous villain. She is cunning, manipulative, and she easily takes advantage of Ariel's naivety. I think I've already spoken quite a lot in her defense, but I would like to note that it's interesting that she uses the idea of female silence and submission to get Ariel to give her voice. She reiterates all those patriarchal talking points that men like women who don't talk too much, men like women who remain silent. So in many ways, she kind of uses those patriarchal values to control another woman. She's like internalized misogyny personified, although I think she's more aware of what she's using.
Might I make a point now?
If you say objection correctly.
Objection.
Carry on.
So I think it's interesting. Yes, I think it's actually it's almost clever to make the villain being the one spouting all of these misogynistic ideas about women being silent and women being, it's all about the body language and looking pretty. But the problem is that at no point anywhere in this film is that ever actually challenged. In fact, it's almost proved correct by the fact that Ariel manages to win over a prince to the point where he's about to kiss her using just her pretty face and her body language. that is not challenging a misogynistic idea. It is proving it correct in this situation.
Mm-hmm.
That body language is a good way of conveying your personality, and it can be a way of communicating. I mean, I'm autistic, I wouldn't know, but for most people, most communication is non-verbal. And I think the film does show that she is still powerless without her voice. She can't tell Eric that she loves him. She can't tell Eric that this other woman, Vanessa, is not her. And she only really regains her power back when she gets her voice back and she can tell Eric what she really feels. So
yeah, but if she was actually clever, she might have tried. I mean, given that we've seen that she knows how to write and can sign her name and can read a contract, although she actually doesn't read it, but she can sign her name, so presumably she can read and write. You'd think that she might have, tried to do that.
There, but then again,
remember
maybe
when I
they
said
just
you had to
assume
say
that
objection?
she can't.
So can you say that again, lady?
Anyway, moving on from that, I also really like the comic relief in this movie, and I'm not joking here. It had me laughing out loud at several points during the evening. I like Sebastian. He's this career-minded crab. He's a bit egotistical. But again, you get to see him grow, and he does begin to follow Ariel and actually see her point of view. And he actually gets on board to trying to help her win Eric's affections. And again, it's a little character arc, but it makes him more interesting. He's not just a one-note character. I also love his music, by the way. I think that's one of the best parts of this movie.
More on that later.
I also like Scuttle. I think the fact that he acts like he knows everything, but of course is actually completely ignorant. I think it's hilarious. He's like Dunning-Kruger in a seagull.
I would say Donald Trump in a seagull, but anyway.
Exactly, yeah. And it's really funny,
this is not political. We are not making political statements here.
No, we would never make a political statement.
But I think it's funny, the moment when he's trying to figure out whether Eric's dead or not, and he tries to take a pulse by listening to the feet. It reminded me of Dr. Zoidberg from Futurama. All in all, I think he was probably one of the most enjoyable characters in this. Flounder, again, he's sort of meant to be like the stand-in for perhaps young male members of the audience who might not always connect with something that's princessy. And overall, I actually really like the supporting characters. They really add the colour to this film. It's like everybody has a distinct personality, even just like the random servants that you see in the castle. You can tell that when they were being drawn and when their lines are being written, they were trying to put some sort of a personality behind them, such as the chef and the maid. And as Grimsby himself, he has a few good one-liners. So overall, the secondary characters, they provide a colourful cast who help build up this world and make it feel believable.
Very good. And now moving on to style. Muddles, please give your case of the prosecution about the style of the movie.
I will be brief. I was just... So, to an extent, I went into this film. It's the first of the Disney Renaissance. I was expecting some of the animation to be of a lower quality than I've seen in things like The Princess and the Frog, Aladdin, Lion King, that kind of thing. What I wasn't expecting was for it to be so dull. Because that's not related to the technology. That's related to artistic choices that were made at the time that this film was animated. So, if we go back to some of those other examples, if you think of The Lion King, you think of the beautiful amber, red, yellow skyline that looks like Africa, that looks like that classic natural world David Attenborough, opening. Dee, 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 dee. That skyline with the elephants walking across the mountain. It's so iconic. If you think about Aladdin, you think of the bright blues and the bright golds and the gorgeous sand and the bright blue sky. If you think about The Princess and the Frog, you think about the fireworks and the the gorgeous, sumptuous colours of America and the wilderness and the cities and everything, and bits of fluorescent here and there. When you think about Little Mermaid, the predominant colour is grey. And that's sad. That's so sad. And it frustrates me because it was a choice that somebody made to make, and it's realistic, but the look of the film doesn't have to be realistic. You know, there aren't really fluorescent skulls dancing around Los Angeles. It's not. I mean, San Francisco. Sorry, getting American places mixed up.
San Francisco? No, it's New
Not
Orleans,
San Francisco,
Margaret.
is it? New Orleans. That's the one. My
Orleans
knowledge of
Muddles.
American geography is great. Anyway.
Sorry, America.
You
If
know-
any Americans are watching,
Sorry,
we
America.
apologise.
I love you really.
San Francisco, honestly. Isn't it?
I'm sorry.
Do you want to talk about
But-
the music as well? Or
The music. There are 2 to 3 good songs in this. They are Poor Unfortunate Souls. Maybe. I like listening to Poor Unfortunate Souls on its own, like as part of a workout playlist or whatever. But actually in the film it was remarkably underwhelming. I think partially because of the big break in the middle where they actually do lots of talking and kind of talk through it and everything. And also it's just remarkably subdued for an Evil Villain song. And I didn't really realise that until I was watching it and seeing that actually on screen there's all this stuff happening and the music just doesn't quite come up to that level for me. The next song is I Want to Be Where the People Are. I want to see, you know,
part of your world.
parts of your world. And that's like irritatingly catchy. It's fine. It's a good song. It establishes Ariel's motive, I guess, for the entire film.
Just a disgust.
It's just a motive.
Like it.
It's just a motive that I really, really dislike because it suggests, like, if she was actually, I really want, like, I would love it if Ariel was actually, like, she was an inquirer, she had a scientific mind and was
Anyway,
incredibly curious,
moving on.
but she actually comes across as a materialistic hoarder.
Moving on.
So
Moving on.
then we have, I can't even, oh gosh.
Kiss the Girl.
Under the Sea.
Under the Sea.
No, Kiss the Girl is just like, I couldn't even hum it to you when I watched the film 2 days ago.
You can't even not it. It
I
literally
know,
has
I
la, la,
genuinely,
la.
I couldn't. I really couldn't. And I have a really good memory for music. But I could not sing you a single note of that song. Under the Sea, it would be the 3rd of the good songs in this. And that is fine. Although some people I've noted online have queried the fact that a Jamaican character is singing about, oh, come and chill underneath the sea, it's all relaxed, we'll just hang out and do nothing. And whether that is actually quite racially insensitive and possibly playing into some stereotypes, which I don't really feel qualified to say anything about. I just feel like
it is worth mentioning, yes, certainly.
It is worth mentioning, but I don't feel qualified to really talk about it or adjudicate it.
Do feel free to comment if you have an opinion on the subject.
Please do.
As long as you
but
keep it
I just think it's something that we should mention, and also the lyric talking about like, oh, the blackfish as well, and it's like,
I mean,
what's
there
a
are
blackfish? There's no fish. Well, like the only blackfish is a slang word for an orca. And what's portrayed is definitely not an orca.
Yeah.
So it's kind of again a little bit maybe a few things wrong with that song. Other than that, it's kind of trying to be the I Just Can't Wait to Be King song of this, you know? It's like, you know, the big group number where everyone's getting involved and there's lots of pretty patterns and the music's fine, but again it's just kind of disappointing because it lacks that colourful element. Like, it's literally not colourful. It just doesn't.
Okay. Okay, any further points you want to make, or can we move on?
No, I'm just. I would just say that generally I was unimpressed.
Okay, Lady in the Hat, your defence of the style, please.
I'm just going to have to say it again, but I am going to ask whether the prosecution and I watched the same movie. I think, for its time, the animation is great, especially the water effects. And also,
I didn't critique the animation. I agree. The animation is buttery, but the color palette is just wrong.
Muddles, you have to say objection before you say something. How many times?
Objection, Your Honour. I'm sick of saying objection.
Denied. Carry on.
Am I allowed to speak again? May I? May I have this privilege of speaking?
Yes, you may in my court, as long as Muddles holds her tongue.
I doubt about that. Anyway, the style is deliberately fantastical as opposed to the photorealism of Finding Nemo. It's not really meant to represent a real ocean, or at least one in our, as we'd understand it. It's a fairy tale ocean, and it doesn't try to be photorealistic or show realistic fish species or things like that. It's how you'd imagine it as a child. And I think that absolutely works for the story it's trying to tell. And I would also disagree. I think it uses colour very well to convey mood. For example, when Triton destroys Ariel's hoard of treasures, first we have these bright oranges, these yellows, these angry reds, and then it fades into just this dull grey, and it shows the change in mood and the change in tone. I think that use of colour to emphasise mood adds to the emotion of this film. And also you have this great contrast between the bright blues and turquoise of the undersea environment, as well as the colour of the fishes and the corals. And then you have the deep reddish browns and greens of the kingdom, showing its earthiness, the fact that it's land, and the complete opposite of the sea, as well as the beautiful, brilliant white castle that I can still remember from my childhood. And I didn't even watch this film quite a lot as a child. And you can see it in in songs such as Poor Unfortunate Souls, where it gets darker and the contrast is up as the song grows in intensity. Another good example is the wedding scene when it's sunset and Ariel's just sitting there on the pier as the wedding ship floats away. And the fact that it's not only the end of the curse and the end of the day, it's kind of the end of her life as well. And I just think that's such a poignant moment, which is made even better by the choice of colour palette. As for the music, there is not a single song in this movie that I have forgotten. So, for example, I think Poor Unfortunate Souls, for me, I think is the best one, because I don't think it's dull at all. It starts out as being low, slightly threatening, but it's convincing as showing Ursula as pretending to be this nice, compassionate person. And then as she reels Ariel in, it grows in intensity until the finale of the song, where she shows her true colours. I think it's one of the best Disney villain songs they've ever done. It's definitely up there with Be Prepared. I like Kiss the Girl. It's catchy. It really sets a mood. Under the Sea is a complete earworm. And again, really, it's just an excuse for Sebastian to show off his musical prowess. But also, like most of the songs in this film, it furthers the plot along. There isn't a single song that feels out of place or feels like that it's just there because they had to have a song. It all moves the story along. And in my view, that's what a good musical should do. And in terms of being a musical film, I think Little Mermaid is up there with the best. So overall, I think, yes, there are some parts of this film which have definitely dated. So perhaps some of the Jamaican stereotyping with Sebastian. I can understand that. It was 1989. I get that. And perhaps some of the CGI effects might seem, such as the boats and other things like that. And with Ursula, it might seem a bit dated. Not particularly. I think it's rendered particularly well. But overall, from 1989, from a studio that was still struggling to find its mark again, I think it's a really impressive film, and you can tell that the artists really were trying their hardest to make it look beautiful. And in my view, they succeeded.
Okay, thank you, Lady in the Hat. And now, do either of you have anything else to say?
As a closing statement, you mean?
No, that's later. Anything else to say about the movie? Any other points?
I think the biggest thing that I noticed when I rewatched it is that I didn't enjoy it. And I know that's a really, really personal thing. And I did have a migraine when I watched it. So maybe it was that. But I just didn't, I found myself watching the time on the bottom of the screen and going oh my gosh, there's still 40 minutes left. I didn't find anything. I feel like the things that were meant to be charming to me, I mostly found disturbing. Like the scene with the... By the way, did anyone else notice that the song that the chef sings is literally Be Our Guest, but in a French accent?
Oh,
which also is
There's
when
only
it's your
8
guest.
notes, that happens sometimes. Some songs sound similar and it's a coincidence.
I mean,
Oh,
And
no. I'm
I
just
mean,
like,
they
I
are
literally
written by
heard it and I was like, did I just switch over to a better Disney film?
I mean, they were written by the same composer, so it's entirely
They were
possible.
written by the same composer. I just feel like it's kind of hilarious if you, like, this is the song that he wrote, that he then wrote another version that was almost identical for Beauty and the Beast, and it's just like, fine. This one is really disturbing, and it's about how we're going to kill and eat these human intelligence creatures, and all the different ways we're going to prepare them.
Now I'm actually.
That's subjective. You're either into black humour or you're not.
Yeah.
In my view, I kind of like it because in a film that's very much about romance, it kind of creates a bit of a counterpoint. It stops it from being too soppy.
I'm all for black humour, but like, it's just, if I was a kid, I would be so disturbed by that. Like, this is a film that's aimed for like pre-teen kids.
Muddles, compared to a lot of the other stuff that
that.
Disney and other children movies and shows have done, it's pretty tame, to be fair.
Yeah, but literally showing fish being dragged out of the ocean and then one that got away sighing in relief that it isn't going to, and then showing those fish being killed and eaten. Yeah. It's like, it's dark.
You do realise most children will have been to a thing called a fishmonger.
Yeah,
I know. But the thing is, the difference is that the fish at the fishmongers were not sentient with sentience is complicated. They did not have human levels of intelligence. They did not have friends and family. They did not have, close relationships with people, which we are established fish do have in this universe. Like, this is just so dark.
Yeah.
This is like, it's way darker than, like, the more you think about it, the worse it gets. Like, humans are unknowingly tearing families apart to eat
You can
them.
do that with most Disney films. It's best not to think about it too deeply because it has disturbing
Well, the film wants me to think about it deeply. It created a whole scene and a song number inspiring me to think about it deeply. If it's not comic relief, they really kill Sebastian.
Enough. We could go round in circles on this all day. Anything else either of you want to say?
No.
No? Good. We're moving on. Muddles, your closing statement. 1 sentence, please.
Was that sigh enough, or do I need to say anything more?
I would like a sentence. A sigh does not constitute a sentence.
Okay. So, this is a film that would have been made better 20 years later than it actually was.
Good.
It would have been made better if it was done in the middle to end of the Disney Renaissance instead of at the beginning. But the fact is that it did kickstart the Disney Renaissance, so it's got something going for it.
Muddles.
I just can't see why.
Muddles, I said 1 sentence. That was clearly 2. You're going to get a sanction for this. Anyway, Lady in the Hat, your closing statement.
Fine,
1 sentence,
sue me
please.
for contempt if you like, Judge.
Again, I'd say it's not a perfect film by any means, and I'd never say that it would be, but it is a foretaste of things to come, and it is still a splendid piece of cinema.
Thank you. And now we come to my favourite part, the verdict. So, you have both argued convincingly.
Well, we get to listen to him for ages.
Compared to how long you've ranted on, we started like an hour ago, Muddles. I'm going to have to edit
exactly
this.
An hour ago.
Have to edit this. I'm going to have to go through and listen to it all again. Anyway.
Yeah.
Shush. Verdict.
You should have picked someone else to do it then.
I probably should, yes. Anyway, my verdict, if I can finally spread it out. You have both argued convincingly. I have to come down. Muddles obviously really doesn't like this film. Lady in the Hat really does like this film. I'm kind of in the middle. Because...
Oh, you cop out.
Oh, shut up. I haven't finished yet. Yes, it is not a great film, but it has certain charm. The characters are strange, but they're entertainingly strange. The music varies, but it's still entertaining and memorable, and I can sing every single song, for the record. But what both of you have you kind of touched it at the end there, but what both you have kind of overlooked is, yes, this was the start of Disney Renaissance. Yes, the characters weren't necessarily strong, but just compare Ariel, for example, to Snow White or the other princesses. Compare Ursula to the previous Disney villain. She was the first Disney villain, I think, to get a song on her own. So it wasn't maybe perfect, but...
You had Professor Brassigan. He had a song.
Yeah, yes, that's true, yes. I stand slightly corrected, but she was the first one for a full-blown, almost operatic song at times. And so, yes, it wasn't perfect, but it was a huge step up from what came before, and it was a taste of what was to come. Because remember, without Little Mermaid, we would never have had Beauty and the Beast, we wouldn't have Lion King. Disney may not even be the superpowered giant it is today without Little Mermaid. I think
we wouldn't have Spider-Man in the MCU.
For example, yes, as well. And so, yeah, I think on the whole, although I personally think the film as a whole isn't the best, because of the impact it's had, I will come down in favour of the defence on this occasion. So yes. The movie is cleared of charges by the very smallest of margins, and because of our incessant interruptions and ranting, Muddles is sentenced to watch this film a further 100 times in the next week. Case closed.
Can I appeal?
No.
Your Honour, and I don't think I said that I wanted to kill you. I said that I wanted to chain you down and make you watch this film on repeat 1,000 times, and I thought that would be suitable punishment.
Thank you all for No. Thank you all for watching The Court of Judge Bookman. We hope to see you again next time we find a movie. If you have any ideas for movies, it doesn't have to be an animated one, that me and my fellow geek philosophers can review, then feel free to either comment or message, or... I mean, I don't know why I'm bothering to say this, because there's only 11 of you, and I know most of you personally. So. But still, I'm saying it anyway, so thank you all for watching. So goodbye from Lady in the Hat.
Goodbye.
Can you say it again? You broke up a little bit.
Bye.
And it's goodbye from Muddled Medic. Muddles.
If you don't hear from me on this channel again, it's because I died while trying to watch The Little Mermaid 120 times in 1 week.
Tears will be so sweet, I'll be putting them in my coffin.
I only said 100 times. If you want to go the whole 121 times, then fine. Okay. Sentence changed. Now say goodbye properly. You always have to spoil everything, don't you?
I do, but only because...
Muddles. Say goodbye properly.
I refuse. You can hold me in contempt if you like.
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
Okay, fine.
I'm a poor, unfortunate soul.
242 times then in next week. And it's goodbye from me, Judge Bookman. Thank you all for watching, and goodbye.